Hi, my name is Mark Brunton. I'm the Operations Section Chief for CAL Fire Incident Management Team 3 on the CZU Lightning Complex, and we'll go over the fire for Friday. So today, a lot of good work on the incident. Weather cooperated again for our ground resources, not so much for our resources to work. On the ground, again, a lot of work on the Botano Park area. Still a ton of work there. The fire is working its way down. A lot of line has been put in some of the areas where the fire has progressed to the line, been able to get good extinguishment, but then starting to work its way up and mopping up very heavy fuels in there, and just a lot of work regarding that. But other areas, we're preparing for the fire to work its way down off the ridge ever so slowly. I had a lot of, because of the wind, it's been pushing a lot of smoke into the communities of Pescadero that has been repopulated, as well as all the way up to Half Moon Bay. And for those people there, that is normal because the wind is just taking simply the smoke from the fire that direction. It's not that there's an increase of fire or that the fire is threatening those communities. It's just simply the fact that the wind is transporting the smoke into that direction. And then in the coming days, we're going to start seeing a change in the direction of the wind, and that should help scour that out of the atmosphere and not be as much of a nuisance. Working it down the coast, again, extinguishment, but there's a lot of mop up to do there. There's a lot of groves of trees, and particularly the eucalyptus groves, and there's deep-seated duff, and the fire's been in there, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of hard work to go in and mop that up, and so that it eliminates the smoke. Eventually, when Highway 1's opened up, we're trying to make it so that people won't see that and call 911 because really there is no threat of any sort of fire or fire restarting in that area because it's deep within the burn. It's not going to reburn again per se to be any threat, but it is going to be a nuisance more than anything, and it's just going to take a lot of work to get that cleaned up and mopped up. Moving down to Davenport, looking really good around the community, starting to get the infrastructure back up and running for that community. The only concern is the drainage, San Vicente drainage. And we put a lot of crews in there today to do the work, a lot of work to do with the fire that is in there. It shouldn't be any sort of threat to the community, but it is adjacent to it, so it is putting up a lot of smoke. But we do have a lot of resources we plugged in there today. And due to the workload and the heavy fuels and the steep topography, it'll take a couple days to accomplish what we're setting to achieve within that and extinguish that part of the fire. But we did get a lot of good work done today. Southern end of the fire is looking really good. The lines are holding and the mop-up continues. Highway 9 corridor, that area surrounding the community of Felton is looking really good. That burn operation for the other day, the main part of that is burned right into the main part of the fire and burning out some of those drainages, so it's cleaned up rather nicely and putting that nice buffer around that community, so that's making us feel really good about the safety for Felton. Moving up the Highway 9 corridor, the line construction continues throughout and improvement of the line. We did have some various locations where we did have some small slopovers of fires there, as well up near Botano Park. Nothing of significance, very small acreage-wise, only a couple acres at a time. Again, that's that fire burning in that duff, that matted material on the forest floor, and just sneaking out past our lines. Because we've been patrolling lines heavily, we have crews in there working. They're able to discover that, pick those up quickly, extinguish them, and we're just going to see that over the next couple days, just because of the challenges of the fuels that we're in, the thick duff on the floor of the forest. It's just one of those things. So it's going to be a constant battle. Doing it's more of a nuisance thing than any, and we don't anticipate it's going to be anything that's going to take off and create more fire. As we get the weather hotter and drier, we're going to see more of it because the conditions are going to be more dry and the fuels dry out even more. But we should have no problem with the control efforts. Again, just a nuisance issue regarding that. Interior, Bonnie Dune, continued heavy workload in there, and we're continuing to work away at that, chipping away at that a piece at a time, and that's just going to be a long, ongoing process. The road clearances are going rather well. We're getting in deeper. So we can do damage inspection. We can also start mopping up and putting in more control lines in those areas. Utility companies are getting in, doing their work that they need to do. The challenge is the falling trees. The fire damaged trees are continuing to fall, so those crews are getting in there, cutting those things up. But sometimes when they're in deep, And in the roadways that have been cleared, trees are falling behind them across the roadways. So it's kind of a 1 step forward, 2 steps back process, and it's going to be an ongoing problem with those trees. There are literally thousands of trees that are fire damaged, and that as time goes on and the fire continues to burn until we can get in and extinguish those, which is going to be a very lengthy, tedious process, we're going to see that, and they're going to fall. Again, big safety concern for our crews. Our personnel are taking that into account. They have safety considerations, safety briefings on that. They're playing heads up so they don't get injured by it. But it's still a very dangerous scenario. And for people that have stayed behind, we've tried to get that word out there, but again, they're in a very dangerous situation. Again, why we make sure that people are evacuated from an area, that is yet another danger. We also had some civilians that were in those areas that were evacuated and stayed behind and stepped in ash pits from stump holes and received significant burns, in which we had to transport them. Again, why we evacuate those areas and why we want people to stay out, because there's a lot of hazards and a lot of hidden hazards in those areas. Aircraft, we flew our aircraft only a small portion of the day because weather just did not allow for it. We were only able to drop about 55,000 gallons of water today, and we couldn't time out our aircraft, of course, because of the small flight time. We're anticipating, as the days are getting closer to some better weather, that we're going to be able to fly those aircraft and maximize that effort. So again, though they're supporting our crews on the ground, they're taking care of the areas that are in deep drainages where our crews can't access at this point in time until the fire progresses closer to more advantageous terrain. And they're extinguishing what they can for us before, so we don't have to get the crews very deep into that. Again, we were seeing more resources show up every day, and we're putting them to work within our plan. We're looking at about Monday being able to employ our National Guard crews. We will have 12 20-person crews that are 20-person of National Guard, and then an additional, over that, supervising that group, 44 CAL FIRE personnel that are assigned to each crew and supervise and support those crews. So that's going to be a good force multiplier. We'll be able to utilize them to free up our Type 1 crews to do the more technical and dangerous work, and those National Guard crews will be really supportive of being able to do what we call cold trailing, so fire's edge that is out, but we still, as a policy, line or put line around that fire so that it secures that and we don't have any sort of reignition of the fire. And so they'll be working arduously once we get them on Monday and be putting them to work. And that concludes our briefing for the day.